Hey, Ayron, how are you?
Hey, what's up, man?
Thanks for agreeing to chat with me. Where are you?
Oh, I'm in Abbotsford, BC, in Canada here.
Okay, so you're still on tour.
Yeah, I got one more show left in North Dakota, so start heading that way today.
Excellent. So you're on tour with Shinedown still?
We just finished our last date to North Dakota, do a show at Bush.
Oh, nice. So, like, usually with the artists, if you look at the kind of bands that they've opened for, you can get a pretty good idea of what they're all about.
Yeah.
But I looked at the list of the bands that you've opened for, and anybody who didn't know your music would not be able to pinpoint what you do from that list. So tell me a little bit about some of the people you've opened for already.
Man, everyone from, Robert Cray to BB King to Guns N' Roses, to Run DMC and Public Enemy to Sir Mix-a-Lot to Bush to Candlebox, Metallica, you name it, man. I've opened for the Rolling Stones now, and
I was going to say, you didn't even mention the Rolling Stones in that list. Like most people wouldn't, that would be the number one name they would drop.
Shinedown, I've opened for Theory of a Deadman. So the list is pretty vast at this point. It's been 10 years plus in the making. And I'm just now getting to the major portion of my career, being signed by a major label and opening for major acts, so a lot of that stuff happened. And, it just kind of, the trend continued and it got bigger as I got signed,
So you definitely paid your dues, and you mentioned you've been signed quite recently. So was that the big stepping point for you, or do you see little stepping points throughout your career so far?
I think it's all little stepping points. I think that was the biggest though. Once I got the major exposure with the radio and being on the Billboard charts and then being successful in the charts, that opened everything wide open, and that was what it was. There was little incremental steps before that, getting signed to major agency, major management and all that. But being signed to a major label changed everything upside down. And then, it wasn't even really being signed, right? You can get signed by a major label and still flop, but I got signed and my first single went, to the top 5 on the Billboard charts shortly after that, and that was my first single. My second single went number 1. And then, we were allowed to tour again. And I think that's when everything kind of started coming together. And my career since then has been turned upside down. My life has been turned upside down. My life is not the same as it was anymore,
And this kind of all happened during the pandemic. So you must have been like excited to really make the most of that opportunity, but kind of stuck at the same time. So now things are kind of opening up. We keep all our fingers crossed. But was it frustrating at that point where you felt like this was a shift in your career, but you couldn't really get out there and play?
Yeah, it was a little frustrating, but it wasn't anything anybody could do about it, and so I just made the most of it, and I actually enjoyed it. I was still home with the kids and my wife, and was able to see them daily and still kind of grow my career from home, which was nice. But I was itching to get out there, man. I was itching to play. And as soon as it opened up, I was gone. I've been gone for a year now. Just touring pretty much not for a year. It's little breaks in between. I had a baby, so I took a break to have a baby. And
Congrats.
I took a few days, I think I was 3 or 4 days off just to have the baby, and then, came back to see him during the holidays and all that. But I really have been on the road pretty much nonstop since August of last year.
You must have a very understanding wife.
Yeah, I just saw her. She just came and hung out with me. So she is very understanding, very forgiving, and she's just a very sweet woman and does whatever she can to make this happen for me. So she's very understanding in that regard.
So we mentioned all this variety of acts that you opened for. Is that the kind of music you were listening to growing up? Were you drawn to all these different kinds of genres?
Yeah, that's all the stuff I loved, I grew up with it, especially like Guns N' Roses. I'm from Seattle, so like the West Coast is filled with Guns N' Roses and the grunge scene in the Northwest. And I loved BB King. I loved Robert Cray. I loved Jeff Beck. I loved all these cats, man, and the Rolling Stones as well. Obviously, like everyone who doesn't love the Rolling Stones, So they were all acts that I really enjoyed. I never thought that I would be like face to face or like sharing a stage with them as a musician or an artist. I just kind of thought like I admire these people, and lo and behold, my life starts opening up and they're right in front of me face to face. So it's pretty crazy.
Is there somebody in your life that was introducing you to that music? Because a lot of people don't discover people like BB King until later in life, teenagers are not usually listening to that kind of stuff.
Right. No, I think I was just really into soul music. I was in the gospel as a kid because I went to the gospel church. And so there's a lot of rhythm and blues around me growing up. I grew up around another musician who would tour all the time with a bunch of different acts. He worked with Earth, Wind & Fire and things like that. And he's a percussionist. So I was exposed to a lot of R&B early on, a lot of blues early on. And it's just what I was into. I felt that soul music, I don't know, deep down. I mean, it really spoke to me. I remember being a kid. I remember 19 years old, but I bought that first record by Stevie Wonder, Fingertips, when he was a little kid.
Right.
I bought first records I bought was Fingertips, just because I loved it, So I was just really, I don't know. They used to say I had an old soul, which I don't really believe. Kids can have an old soul. That's too much pressure for a kid. But I think that I had, all this great music we listen to today really started then, and that was my beginning, and I think that held true to my career at this point.
What album kind of reminds you of your teenage years the most?
I'm gonna throw you a curveball. I'm gonna say Britney Spears. Remember when Toxic came out?
I like the eclecticity of your taste.
Dude, I love everything, man. I'm very eclectic when it comes to music. I think that's part of why I've been successful in what I've written so far, is because I'm coming from a lot of different places at once, as opposed to just looking at one genre. Even though I'm coming from the rock genre, I'm still using the sensibility of the different stuff that I grew up listening to, from pop to R&B to hip hop, and I think that's why music kind of swings the way it does. But yeah, I remember that Toxic, driving down the street, no license, driving down the street, or listening to Toxic, just feeling really high, just really great, good on life, yeah, that album does. I remember that Christina Aguilera album kind of epitomizes my late teenage years. Early on, Velvet Revolver was kind of part of that. Nice. And then what else? Incubus was a huge part of that too, man. So I don't know. There's 30 different albums I can name and artists I can name, but those are the cats I was listening to at that time.
I know that you started off dabbling with different kinds of instruments before you chose the guitar. Was there one player that really resonated with you and made you want to pick up that instrument and really run with it?
I think, this is one of those common stories, most inspirational common stories, is that, kids were watching PBS one night. It was the only thing on or whatever. And Steve Ray Vaughan came on TV and made you want to be a guitar player. I think that holds true to me too, man. The first time I saw Steve Ray Vaughan on Lost City Limits, I knew that I wanted to be a guitar player. But, also I grew up in Jimi Hendrix's neighborhood. And so, yeah. That big. It was everywhere. This dude, big fro and left-handed, upside down guitar. That image was just imprinted in my brain. So I think that Stevie may have been the switch, but Jimmy was the catalyst.
With your hip hop, your love of hip hop as well.
Yeah.
How do you feel like that has influenced your sound now?
Well, that comes down to the rhythm, that's really the beat and kind of the repetition in the beat too. We listen to hip hop. Usually the emphasis is really around how the lyrics rhythmically fit within the beat, And so for me, when I'm writing music, I'm always thinking that way. I'm thinking how can we put some repetitive, something that just drones in your brain over and over and over again that you can't get rid of. I want to get a hooky, something that just hooks and just stays there. It's an earworm and never leaves you. That's the hip hop sensibility for me. Whether that be in a riff or whether it be in the drum and bass rhythm, or whether it be in, a lyrical phrase or a melody or something. But I'm always trying to get people with this droning, repetitive thing in their brain,
Yeah, you're trying to hypnotize people.
Absolutely. Because that's the stuff that sticks. When you have little things like that, and it's the little stuff too. In Take Me Away. It's don't give up, no. And Take Me Away in that part where she sings that part. That's that part that sticks in your brain a little bit.
If somebody had never heard Ayron Jones, is there one song that you would want them to start with? Because your music is so varied. I think it'd be hard to choose one. Maybe choose two.
Let's see. I'd say Killing Season would be one of them to listen to for sure. And the other one would probably be, I don't know, man. It's hard. Take Your Time. I think maybe be the two for me. I know it'd be easy for me to say my hits. It'd be easy to say the Take Me Away. As great as those songs are, I don't know if they capture the full range and spectrum of what I do as a guitar player, as a vocalist. So I think that for me, it's got to be Killing Season. For the vocal aspect of it, and then than Take Me Away, which has a vocal thing to it too. But you really get to hear my guitar playing put on display.
And are you somebody that pays attention to new music like coming out now? Is what's going on around you?
Yeah, I try to. I mean, it's harder on tour, you know, when you're just like your life is full of sound and noise, and so when you're traveling, you just want to rest and be in silence, you know. But I you know, I definitely pay attention to who's doing what and where things at. And then, you know, right now I'm not really charting these singles either. So like, I'm not really focused on the charts right at the moment, you know, so I'm really focused on writing and trying to just play. But typically I do. I mean, when, you know, it's game on, as I'm getting ready for this new album cycle, I'm definitely like looking out around me and seeing who's doing what and what it sounded like, you know, and, you know, I'm always trying to break the mold too. I'm always listening for trends in music, like what's happening, like who's doing what, you know, but just to hopefully implement that in some of the stuff that I'm doing. You know, maybe it'll give me a chance to get more listeners.
Are there any recent artists that you've been particularly excited about that you've been kind of sharing with your friends?
Recent artists, man. Let me think about that. Cause I think I really had. I mean, there's a few in my pocket. I've been listening to a lot of St. Vincent, who I think is amazing. And even though they're not that much of a new artist, but they're still fairly new. Idols, which is a great punk band. If you haven't heard Idols, one of my favorites, man.
Yeah, they just played here last weekend and I couldn't go because I had a wedding. So have you been watching the Shinedown shows?
Oh man, they're literally one of the greatest bands of all time. And people are I think are really starting to realize that, you know, after all these years of their success, as many singles as they've had chart and number ones as they've had, I think that people are starting to recognize that these guys are a different kind of band. And you really don't know it until you like go see that live and you watch it happen night after night. Then you realize like that these guys are on a different level, you know.
It looked like an arena show in a theater.
Yeah. It's an arena show in a theater, and then just I don't know if people realize how brilliant they are as musicians and artists, you know. They're just incredible. Single one of them is so extremely talented, and that the band, I mean, I just night after night, man, I sit there and watch these guys in admiration and in awe of how skilled they are. And you know, and I could be giving lip service right now because they let me open for them, but I mean, that truly comes from my heart. Like, you know, that they are, first of all, some of the nicest human beings I've ever been around. Like you would expect that after all these years, like the ego has gotten to them, but they're not. They're so humbled and they're so sweet. And but their music and their skill and their artistry are bar none, honestly. And there's a reason we're sitting here talking about them as being one of the best, you know, getting into the echelon of the greatest of all time. You know, you talk about your Aerosmiths, you talk about the Rolling Stones, you know, you talk about these legendary bands, and these guys are starting to tiptoe into that territory, you know, and so it only gets better from here, I think, for them as they keep moving on. But if you get a chance to see them, they are one of the greatest bands of all time, man. I just simply adore those guys.
I was talking to Phil Collin earlier today from Def Leppard, and we were talking about who's the next generation of like festival headliners in the rock world.
Yeah.
And he was struggling to think of who that could be. And maybe Shinedown is one of them.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think so. Those guys, I mean, they're skilled, man. They're very skilled. I mean, and Def Leppard comes from a different place though, too, right? Like that's a different era of music that like headlining was a different thing at that point, right? Like it still required, you know, all the production that it takes to be big today. But I think that back then the music and the artistry came from a different place, you know. But I think these guys, I mean, honestly though, even with that being said, I still think Shinedown, because I don't know if people, you got to see them live. I like to say, you know, in this era that we have, I think there's a lot of people that do tracks, they do a lot of little layering and do different stuff. It's hard to pick out what's like them playing versus the track, you know. And like these guys don't really that. They have some like overdubs and stuff, but they play hard.
For you as an artist, what kind of career would you really like to have? Do you just want to be as big and as popular as possible? Or do you look at somebody and think, I want to have a career like that guy?
No, I want to keep growing, and I just want to be big. You know, I want to just reach as many people as possible, and keep expanding though too, man. You know, I want to get into different stuff like acting and, you know, own a restaurant or something. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like I want to do bunch of different stuff. But I think musically, I just want to keep touching people, man. You know, it's been an honor of my lifetime to be able to go out night after night and meet people who just like who listen to my music and like know my lyrics from around the world. You know, I've been all over the world now, and there's been somebody in the front row screaming my lyrics back at me. You know, that's the honor of my life. I just want to continue that trend. I want to continue making people proud and making people smile. And, you know, and just put my head down and work. And as long as I keep doing that and I open up my eyes and wake up somewhere cool, I'll be happy. You know?
I think you're definitely making a lot of people happy and making a lot of people smile as well. So what's next for you?
I got a new single coming out this month. I got a new record I'm working on right now. I had to head back to Nashville after next week or after this week. And I end up in Nashville working on my new record, which I can hopefully have ready to go by next year. But yeah, I got a new single coming out, dropping from my next record this month, man. So it's in a couple weeks. So I'm excited.
Excellent. Cool. Well, it sounds like things are on an upward trajectory. And I absolutely think you deserve it. I love what you're doing. I love how you're bringing all these different influences and making something brand new. And I wish you all the best with everything that's going to happen for you.
Appreciate that, man. Thank you so much.